I'm just saying that it doesn't really feel like there's special stuff, and that's why the Manoah question and taking him out of the mix is so fascinating. Is it's multifaceted. How the hell do you approach what you do with them moving forward? How much of an indictment on the front office is it that they failed to address starting pitching beyond, Zach Thompson and guys that you can't remember the names of? And then if they don't have one of their special pieces as they're moving forward here over the next couple of months, like what position does that put them in? Someone did just tweet at me, when does Ryu come back? And I'm like, that is where we're at. That is totally where we're at, where it's like, yeah, man, Hyun-Jin Ryu coming off of 2 years of no baseball. You're really hoping that he can come and give you something.
And here's the thing. I mean, back to your Bassett point, actually. Here's the thing. Hyun-Jin Ryu would be, probably helpful in a regular season rotation. That's all well and good. When you get to the playoffs, like the upper velocity, strikeout, swing and miss stuff, that's what plays, right? And that's the knock against Bassett. Like, he's gotten Cy Young Award votes, and I know that he can strike people out, but this is not a guy that relies heavily on the strikeout. Kevin Gausman is. Like, Kevin Gausman feels like a guy that was built for the postseason. That's who you want starting your playoff game. Outside of him, it's like, I don't know at this point. Yeah, it's a toss-up between Jose Barrios, who looks all the way back to the guy that they intended him to be when they signed him to the 7-year extension, and then Chris Bassett. No, the thing that made this special was a two-headed ace monster at the top of your rotation, and it was a top of the lineup, like 1 through 3, and I guess 4 if you add Matt Chapman, who looked a little different than the guy that we saw be Major League Baseball Player of the Month in April. But that was it. It was that special offense, at least at the top of the lineup, and a top 2 in your rotation that was world class. And at this point, they only have 50% of the rotation thing, which means that you can win, you can get into the playoffs, but you're a long way away from the team people expected you to be.
You know what's funny is that from a standpoint of making the playoffs, having Barrios and Kikuchi normalize into good starters, right? Passable good starters. It's probably better for you than just Manoah staying what he is, but it also is like
I think that's great. It's a net positive. Honestly, the Blue Jays have been a net positive in starting pitching. Like, if you predicted how they would look starting pitching wise, and that nobody's been on the IL, and still that they're having issues, is wild. It's mind bending.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is it's a net positive for the regular season, but it's a death blow for winning a World Series.
Yeah, no, it's a good way to put it. That you would if you put a gun to your head and said you have to choose either Alek Manoah is Alek Manoah and Yusei Kikuchi and Jose Barrios are unplayably bad again, or
you got to have
Jose
Zach
Barrios
Thompson at some point in the rotation, and also one of those other guys whose names you can't remember, not Casey Lawrence. It's like, no, you would take this one, at least for this season, because long term you still want Alek Manoah to be an ace. But it's this front office has to be like this whole baseball team too. Like, you're saying, hey, they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're good enough to make the playoffs. I think so too. I think they're going to be definitely around it until the very end. I'm not as convinced as you are that they're a playoff team. I think that baseball, I think that the American League West, people are not giving enough respect to at all. Like, I think the Rangers are good.
The longer the season goes along, the Rangers are hanging around.
So I mean, and the Rangers won a gutsy game yesterday too, where they let St. Louis tie it up late, and then they came back and still walked it off in the ninth. They're just I like that team. They've got some real bones to them. So. I'm not as convinced as you. What I will say is I think that they will make it or be around it. If I had to bet on will they make the playoffs right now, I would say a slight to the yes. But what is going to get really interesting here is they might not be able to play Manoah. And you've said it, that they've been so fortuitous with injuries. The first injury they have, they have to call Manoah back up. And then you're with Manoah and Casey Lawrence or something in the rotation. It gets really, really ugly very, very quickly, just like with the bats, right? If there's a Springer injury, all of a sudden it's Nathan Lucas in right field every single day. And you go, boy, this is bad. The depth is not exactly well addressed. Anyway, last thing on this, and then we'll take a quick break. And I got a bunch of other stuff to hit with you today. I wish that Schneider would have just left him in there and let him work through it. Like, if your whole thing is that it's not something physical, it's possibly mental. Like, don't you want your guy trying to leave? It's 6-0. You were against the Astros, and people were tweeting at me like, the game's not over yet, JD. I went, okay, the idea that you're going to hold the Astros now with a bullpen game to 6 runs and an offense that's been Yeah, not exactly the greatest of all time with runners in scoring position with hitting home runs this year, is going to just jump back. This isn't 2015, right? I was surprised that they gave him the hook. How did you feel about that?
I was not surprised at all. And I generally I tend to side with you, like in let a pitcher eat it. But that's like veteran pitchers. Like if like the Chris Bassett start, game one of the season.
You don't view him kind of a little bit though more as a veteran. That's the other piece of this is like he's old or he's young, but he's seasoned now.
Buddy, like we all saw his post game, the start before this last one, right, where he got yanked after the 4 innings, and like he's on the verge of tears. This is a guy that you're still hoping you can turn back into the guy he was for the first 2 years of his career. Plus, he'd thrown like 38 pitches. Like the one out, what was it? Like a deep fly ball out, right? Like just nothing. Like it looked like he was going to be up there forever. Like forever. Just hoping that somebody stole a home run to create an out for him. In general, I agree with you 100%. And it irks me when managers, the game is already, for all intents and purposes, over, and then they throw like their lowest leverage reliever in there to mop up instead of just letting the guy throw 100 pitches. But Jay Jackson was awesome, man. They actually, like, if you did squint, you could see a path to the Blue Jays coming back in that game, and we've seen
thanks
so
to Jay Jackson. And then, but you remember that it's just like with the Leafs when they're down 3-0 in a series, you go, hey, you could squint and see the path, but then the second they make one mistake and you go, oh, right, there's no margin for error. That's the whole thing about this, is that it sucks and you're going to lose probably. I'm not of the belief that leaving him out there for a little while longer is just the tipping point that shatters. I had one guy tweet at me like, you have to think about his contract. I was like, that's the least of my worries with his contract right now. No, are you kidding? This is what you think?
You're just hoping this guy can rehabilitate his major league career.
To me, I'm saying, hey, the one benefit we have is that the pressure is kind of off now. Like, work your way through it. Let's just get out of this inning, throw you back out there, try to give you something to build off of. Going through the bullpen, too, it's a 4-game set against the World Series champs. And, they didn't exactly use the world's greatest bullpen arms. But it's all the guys that I think are pretty whatever. But